Channel 2, English. 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 Channel 2, English.
Welcome and buenos dias for this S&T press conference, of course at a very special moment, namely the last plenary session ahead of the elections in June. Before we kick off, I would like to invite you, maybe some again, to our press reception that we will have tonight at 18 hours here in this house in room C01 in the low building, so very close to here, where our group president Iratxe, together with our bureau, will be present and would like to spend a moment in a more informal way with all of you. So anybody who is here is, of course, very welcome. Iratxe, García, our group president, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias. Yes, thank you very much. Today is St. George's Day, and this is a day that is celebrated in Catalonia, and people give each other a rose and a book, and somebody's just given me a rose. And it's also the day of my autonomous community in Spain, Castilla and León. And normally in April 23rd, I'm out in the fields in Villalar trying to tell people, persuade people, talking about what is best for my people in Castilla and León. But obviously today, this week, is the last part session before the European Parliament elections, so I have to be here. But I would also like to make this statement and just wish the people from my autonomous community, Castilla and León, all the best. Whoops. Oh dear, my rose has fallen onto the floor. As you know, it's the last part session before we hold the European Parliament elections, and I wanted to start off with some words of thanks. First of all, thank you to all of you, the press, the media, those of you who come to Strasbourg and who follow our plenary sessions. And you basically are the loudspeakers, as it were. You relay the message about all the work that we have ahead of us and that we've been doing. And I always say that this is a relationship based on mutual need. And I would like to thank you for your respect and the very professional way in which you've worked during this mandate and the way in which you have treated me personally and also my group. So thank you very much to all of you. And thank you also to the interpreters. Thank you very much for your excellent work, because obviously without your work, none of this would be possible. So I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you to the interpreters. And in this chapter of thanks, I would also like to thank my group, the group of Socialists and Democrats, to the team, the staff, Mutali, for example, from communication, my cabinet, the group staff, from the first stagiaire of one of the members of the group right through ranks of our staff. All of you have done an amazing job of work. And thank you to all the members, the men and women, members of our socialist group, who have been members of the group over these past 5 years. It's been a great honour. I've been very proud to be president of the Socialist and Democrat group over these 5 years. There have been some difficult, some tough times, and I think we have to bear those in mind. Just cast a look back, we had Brexit, and then, of course, we had the pandemic, and then, of course, war broke out in Ukraine. But in spite of all of these very extraordinary situations, we have managed to stick to our priorities as socialists, the green agenda, the fair and social agenda. And I think during this last week before the elections, then I really have to say thank you to all of those involved. So getting back now to this week's plenary session, which is going to be a very intense week, obviously, not only when it comes to debates, but also votes. There are going to be 89 legislative proposals which are going to be voted on. We've had a few this morning, and obviously we're going to be continuing with votes on Wednesday and Thursday. And I would just like to highlight one or two of these votes which are going to be important. For example, online platform workers, which was one of our main demands as Social Democrats. We're going to implement that. Economic governance, due diligence, forced labour, and the directive on the European law on combating gender violence. And perhaps, if you may, I would like to say a little more about this. I think this is the cherry on the cake, as it were, when it comes to the work that we've done as socialists during the course of this parliament. The President and the President of the Commission, we sent her a number of conditions when it came to our political group supporting her, and that was the agenda for equality and for women's rights, and also to have a piece of legislation to tackle gender violence, which is one of the worst things that can happen in Europe and around the world. And we're going to continue with this agenda. And I think we've had the vote, and we should be proud of the fact that we really pushed this initiative. It's perhaps not the best directive it could be. There are certain issues that we would have liked to be included. For example, everything relating to consent. But obviously, after the elections, we're going to get down to work to implement the directive. And also, there's the body, the ethics body. We've approved that as well, and that's going to be approved despite the vote from the European People's Party. They're adding their votes to the votes of ID in order to try and block that particular proposal. Once again, the EPP is allying themselves with the extreme right, an extreme right which is threatening progress in the European Union. And perhaps I could conclude my summary of this week's plenary week by referring to a debate which is important for us, and that's a debate that we included on the agenda, and that is historical memory. The law of historical democracy in Spain was something that was passed in order to recognize all the victims of the civil war, each and every one victim of that civil war, and also to have a dignified memory of those people who are buried somewhere in a field or in an embankment. Vox is a Frankist, pro-Franco group, Frankist group, and they don't hide it. They're against abortion, amongst other things, and the EPP says that they do support the constitutional agreements, but they also support these extremists. And if you take a look at the indifference of the EPP when it comes to the lives lost during that dreadful war, lives lost in jail, no, not one single democracy can be built up on silence. Truth, sincerity, the duty, obligation of memory are all important. They're not empty words, nor are they, but these are just principles of the United Nations when it comes to preserving memory. And in Spain, we do have such a law, as is the case in other member states of the European Union who went through fascism. So we're going to support the power of memory right across Europe, in all corners of Europe, the memory of a society which wishes to live in peace and be at peace with its past so that they can move forward to a future of democracy. So obviously that debate is going to be absolutely essential for our political group. There are one or two other issues which, of course, are on the agenda, and I'm now at your disposal for any questions you may have.
Iratxe, are there any questions? We start with Anna. Please introduce yourselves, name and medium.
Anna Bandensky from Europe Diplomatic Magazine. I have a question on your rose has fallen. I have a question on rape, because there was an argument, as you know, and it's a very central question for women's rights, because France has a much more, I would say, sensitive position. They are not defining the way the other countries do, like, for example, Belgium. So are you satisfied with absence of the word consent, or are you satisfied with the wording in this very important legislation? Because many women think that the legislation is not satisfactory as they wished.
No, I'm not happy at all. I'm not happy that consent has not been incorporated into the legislation. I'm not happy as a Social Democrat, and that's the position of our group. And it's the position that has been defended by the Parliament. But ultimately, we realise, of course, that we have to take a decision at this stage of the mandate, and we felt it was better to have a directive that can protect women across the European Union in general, and then work in order to be able to improve the directive. As I said, it's not the directive that we, Social Democrats, would have drafted. We wanted consent in the directive. It wasn't possible. But we're now going to be working so that in the immediate future we will be able to incorporate that into the legislation.
Thanks a lot. Yes, please, introduce yourself.
Hi, Max Griera for Euractiv. Primer de tot, feliç Sant Jordi, indeed. Then my question would be about Russian interference. We see new cases also on Chinese interference. Morawiecki last week gave an interview saying how there might be spies across political groups. So my question for you is, are you worried about this? And second, how should the parliament react?
Well, obviously, yes, I am worried about this. This is something the European Parliament has been talking about for quite a long time, and now that we see there are facts, and the Social Democrat group decided to set up a committee in order to take a look at interference in the democratic processes by external bodies, which is the threat to our whole democratic process. So yes, we're worried about this. We are fully aware of the fact that there is funding by certain outside powers, Russia, China, and others as well. And what they're trying to do is destabilize the European institutions, including the European Parliament. And what we've done is to ask the European Parliament to investigate this, and obviously to work together with the authorities that are currently investigating the matter. What is at stake is the future of the European Union and also democracy, because if we're not able to put a halt to this situation, then the threat will grow ever larger. I think it's obvious that these kind of things exist, and there's a very clear link between the extreme right, because in this particular case that you referred to, we're talking about the assistant to the main candidate for the extreme right-wing group in Germany. So this is not a casual link. So obviously we have to continue with these investigations so that we can continue to be as safe as possible within this institution.
Are there any questions on this side? No, I can't see anybody. Yes, in the back, please.
Hi, Catherine Carlson for Politico. Could you say if you're having talks with the Five-Star Movement from Italy to join the group after the election? Thank you.
Well, I talk to very many colleagues from other political groups, but when it comes to the politics, how we're going to set ourselves up with the other political groups, then we can only really decide on that after the 9th of June. This conversation has not taken place, but obviously any kind of talks or conversation talking about the composition of our group will happen after the 9th of June.
Please.
Hi, I have a question about the vote of tomorrow.
Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, Eleonora Vasquez from Euractiv. I have a question on the vote of tomorrow on the anti-harassment procedure in the European Parliament, so the mandatory training and everything. So I want to have a comment about that from you, and what do you expect from the other group, if you can foresee any pattern from the other group. Thank you so much.
Por supuesto.
Well, yes, obviously. Our political group has been very clear on this right from the outset of the negotiations. We have always been in favour of compulsory training of members of the European Parliament in this particular area, and I would very much hope that other political groups do the same, that a decision be taken in the European Parliament to be able to make progress on these kind of things, because progress does need to be made in this House, in the European Parliament. We represent the citizens of the European Union. We have to do that with guarantees, and our group has a very firm position on this, and we would hope the other political groups do so too.
Yes, hi, I'm Bibiana from a Norwegian news agency. Sorry if I asked something that you have already mentioned. I came in a little late, but I'm wondering about the S&D's stance on the fact that the strategic agenda does not mention climate or any wording regarding climate so far. What is your position on that?
Strategic agenda, I don't know exactly.
The plan for the next 5 years, for the next mandate? Strategic agenda?
The strategic agenda will be working on that as of the 9th of June when it comes to those of us who are going to be representing the citizens in this chamber. These Social Democrats are working on their own strategic agenda within the Social Democratic group on climate change, social justice, access of young people to housing, because that is one of the main problems young people are facing at the moment in the European Union. And the idea is to have an agenda which also focuses on employment and jobs, quality jobs. So those are the kind of priorities that we are working on from within the Social Democrat group, so that the group that results from the European Parliament elections will be able to continue with it.
I'm sorry, I might have been a little unclear. I think I was talking about the strategic agenda for the EU Commission, for the Commission's work for the next 5 years.
Es que la Comisión.
Thank you. The European Commission puts forward its work programme every year, but the European Commission is also finalising its mandate just after the elections to the European Parliament. And after the European Parliament elections, we're going to have to vote the next president of the Commission. And obviously then together with the President of the European Union, then of course we'll have a new College of Commissioners, and it's only then when they can start implementing the work programme. As I said, the Commission is about to come to the end of its work.
Yes, please.
Hello, Papadimitriou is my name, from Deutsche Welle and the Greek press. Please allow me a general question about how to cope with the extreme right and populist parties, especially during the election campaign. Do you think it's better to isolate them, or is it better to look for the discussion, for the verbal fight with them?
We have to confront them with arguments and with reasoning and with policies. An election campaign, well, that's what it's all about. You have to explain to your citizens what you have to put on offer, and you also have to explain to them just what the challenges and the threats are, which are posed by other political groupings. The Social Democrat group is finishing its parliamentary work now, and we're going to be starting up election campaigns in our respective member states. These election campaigns have to be positive in nature. They have to offer alternatives to our citizens. And these cannot be election campaigns which are based solely on the threats posed by the extreme right. But we have to offer them something. But we have to also, without any kind of complex, explain just what we want, first of all, if we want a fairer, more feminist, a more environmental, more social European Union, but also confront them with what the extreme right is putting on offer, i.e. to destroy the values of the European Union. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further questions? I think online we don't have any either. Then also from my side, thank you very much, of course, for all the good cooperation with all of you over all this mandate. Thank you very much, Iratxe, García, Perez, and hope to see you tonight.